According to financial services firm Jefferies, the unexpected increase in demand for new capacity will increase over the next 3 years. Quote, "We raise our estimate for coal generation by 11%, driven by higher capacity factors and staying elevated through 2027 on favorable fuel pricing versus gas, particularly for existing fleet. Power companies all over the country are reporting having to burn more coal to meet increased demand, and environmentalists, of course, worry about the pollution and CO2 that comes from these plants. The problem, of course, isn't AI at all. It's the lack of nuclear power. Not just ones that were shut down, but ones that would and should have been built, but weren't entirely for political reasons. Last year, Morgan Stanley projected that power generation for data centers will emit 2.5 billion tons of greenhouse gases by 2030, 3 times previous estimates. Someone please compare that to the nuclear power plants that have been shut down by idiots. As we covered before, data centers are trying their best. Amazon is working with TerraPower to build their Natrium reactor as cheap, safe, clean energy for an AWS data center. And Microsoft is working with Constellation Energy Generation to restart the TMI-2 reactor in 2 years. But if political idiots had never put the brakes on it, if the NRC had never existed, or at least had been anything but a bunch of panicky obstructionists, we would be absolutely swimming in clean power. No one would care about climate change, electric cars would be uninhibited, and people of all socioeconomic classes would be immeasurably better off than they are now. With every new power concern, we need to be reminded as to why it's a concern, and more importantly, who's to blame for it and whom we should never listen to again. Okay, now that I've got you all whipped up, let me tell you why it's not as great a concern as all that. Andy Masley has a pretty lengthy Substack article where he actually looks at data center usage for AI, specifically ChatGPT, in something other than a total vacuum and actually puts it into context with many other uses. He also engages the concept of opportunity costs to consider what you would otherwise be doing if you weren't using ChatGPT. He starts off being very direct, quote, "The question this post is trying to answer is, should I boycott ChatGPT or limit how much I use it for the sake of the climate? And the answer is a resounding and conclusive no. The numbers are completely clear and final, and anyone telling you otherwise is deeply mistaken. All counterpoints fail for simple, obvious reasons." Now, regular listeners know this podcast and how we're immediately on alert when people talk like that. Make a claim like that, and you'd better be able to back it up. But, spoiler alert, he does. Now, he's just talking about climate issues and power usage among data centers, not other issues like copyright or job losses, but we've already debunked those pretty thoroughly. I'll leave you to read a lot of the details for yourself. The article is so long there's no way we can even summarize most of it, so just hitting the highlights, let's start a ways down where he talks about energy and water usage. Quote, "A ChatGPT prompt uses 0.3 watt-hours. This is enough energy to leave a single incandescent light bulb on for 18 seconds, leave a wireless router on for 3 minutes, play a gaming console for 6 seconds, run a vacuum cleaner for 1 second, run a microwave for 1 second, run a toaster for 0.8 seconds, or brew coffee for 10 seconds. He also mentions that at DC prices, it costs about 1/200th of a cent. To use $1 worth of power, you'd have to make 19,600 prompts. As for carbon usage, a single ChatGPT prompt produces 0.28 grams of CO2, or about 35 seconds of streaming video, uploading 9 images, driving a sedan for 4 feet, or using a laptop for 1 minute. Quote, "Because this is so low, encouraging people to stop using ChatGPT is basically never going to have any impact on their individual emissions. If individual emissions are what you're worried about, ChatGPT is hopeless as a way of lowering them. It's like seeing people who are spending too much money and saying they should buy one fewer gumball per month. What I couldn't figure is his assumptions about this amount of CO2 production. He seems to be using a mix of power sources probably close to the US average. Obviously, if you live in an area with a lot of nuclear, hydro, and solar, those emissions are going to be a lot lower. But you all know how much I love visual perspectives. He mentions the average American emits about 100,000 times as much CO2 per day, and then shows you an image with 100,000 dots. Quote, "If I started spending an additional penny per month, I wouldn't notice, because there would be other days where I'd randomly spend way more or fewer pennies on other things. If I looked at a graph of my spending, the penny would be drowned out in the random noise of my other decisions." ChatGPT prompts are like this. They use so little energy that they get drowned out in the random ways we change our energy use day to day. If you looked at a graph of my energy footprint before and after using ChatGPT, you wouldn't notice any change at all. And then there's the claim we've covered before about water usage. More dots! 1 dot is water used by one ChatGPT prompt, whereas the whole thing is your daily water use. Every day, the average American uses enough water for 24,000 to 61,000 ChatGPT prompts. Quote, "If you want to prompt ChatGPT 40 times, you can just stop your shower 1 second early. If you normally take a 5-minute shower, set a timer for 299 seconds instead, and you'll have saved enough water to justify 40 ChatGPT prompts." He also shows a graph of other internet usage compared to ChatGPT and how it is absolutely dwarfed by an e-commerce purchase, 1 hour of streaming music, 1 hour of GPS navigation, uploading a 1 gig file, a 1 hour Zoom call, or watching a 10-minute 4K video. In fact, judging by the size of the graphs, it seems closer to a minute of a Zoom call, less than 30 seconds of the video, and maybe a single song on a streaming platform. And as he points out, no one really thinks about their water usage of other products. Quote, "Leather shoes, 4 million prompts worth of water. Smartphone, 6.4 million prompts. Jeans, 5.4 million prompts. T-shirt, 1.3 million prompts. A single piece of paper, 2,550 prompts. A 400-page book, 1 million prompts. If you want to send 2,500 ChatGPT prompts and feel bad about it, you can simply not buy a single additional piece of paper. If you want to save a lifetime supply worth of chatbot prompts, just don't buy a single additional pair of jeans. If you want to reduce your water footprint, avoiding ChatGPT will never make a dent. These numbers are so incredibly small, it's hard to find things to compare them to. All total, American data centers use about 8% of the water used by U.S. steel production. Basically, when it comes to all of these issues, ChatGPT usage is a rounding error. But more than that, he points out how efficient data centers are precisely because they concentrate computing in a single area, which is the very thing that allows people to come up with all these scary numbers. There are very few things that can be concentrated as much as data centers can, and so they are incredibly efficient when compared to other industries whose production has to be spread out all over the place. And that's the paradox he points out. Quote, "The environmental paradox of data centers is that they put so much strain on the surrounding energy grid because, not despite the fact that they have been made so uniquely energy efficient. This is due to the economies of scale that come with running so many servers in one building. That can pose a problem for a local grid, which wasn't made for such hyper-concentrated power usage. But again, the paradox is that they do that because they are so darned efficient. Locally, they use a lot of power in a few places. Globally, they're incredibly efficient. Locally, they put out a lot of carbon compared to other places. Globally, it's incredibly low. Locally, they use a lot of water. Globally, their water usage is negligible. The average Earthling uses the internet for 7 hours a day. That entire time, you're interacting with a data center of some kind. And all data centers worldwide emit about 0.5% of the world's emissions. Another reason it looks so bad is because AI is growing so fast, and this wasn't anything that was predicted 10 or 20 years ago when we could have built out the infrastructure to deal with it. But 51% of all hyperscale AI facilities are in the US, and 60% of new ones will be built here. And that's supporting the AI usage of about 1 billion people worldwide. But what if we didn't have these data centers? Then we'd have to be doing everything on our own computers. That would mean power issues being spread out, with much greater overhead at residential or commercial prices, as opposed to very efficient low overhead energy uses at industrial prices. And that's without considering how AI can lower energy and emissions. The International Energy Agency said in a report, the adoption of existing AI applications in end-use sectors could lead to 1,400 megatons of CO2 emissions reductions in 2035 in the widespread adoption case. This does not include any breakthrough discoveries that may emerge thanks to AI in the next decade. Think about it like the rise of the internet. A lot of power was and is generated to run the internet, and all the computers, servers, smartphones, routers, and everything else involved. But look at how much more efficient it's made things. AI will be the same way. And like I said in the last segment, blame the fearmongers who didn't want to build out nuclear power. For our species, this should never have been a problem.